muraza kunyihanganira turacyategereje turebe niba batangira ikiganiro none reka mbese wa message zanyu abo turi kumwe. um, mbanze mpere kuri Alex Nsenga Chimutu Banda, RN7 Kibuye, Ntwari Arisuma, Maurice Mario, Zaire Bwenge again, Yahya na Rafine, mwese ndabasuhuje kandi mbahaye ikaze. What? So reka turebe niba bagarutse cyangwa niba batangiye, then we go live. Muri UN not yet, ubwo rero ni ugutegereza. As soon as batangiye we will go live, turajya live together. Ndakomeza kujya ncunga izo meetings zombi. Ni mukanya rero. Nizera ko meze neza ariko aho muherereye hose. By the way, kari agatendo kujya mumbwira aho muherereye, it's beautiful. Njye mumbwira menye cyane cyane iyo ari nk'ubwa mbere tubonye abantu baje muri chat bavuye nko mu bihande by'isi tudasanze duhura, cyangwa se tudasanzwe turi muri live chat hamwe, biba byiza cyane ko bumva ko community yacu yagutse. By the way, nanibagiye kubabwira, guess what, mwarantumye naratumitse, muzi ko uyu munsi mukanya ndetse mu gihe cy'amasaha 2 Dr. Kambanda ari buze kubaganiriza. Turavuga kuri rubiya bya kuri kuntu Kongo yajyanye u Rwanda mu rukiko. Ibyo ni ibintu ari buze kudusobanurira icyo bivuze, ziriya sanctions z'ejo bundi, ibyo turaza kubigarukaho. Turavuga ku mutekano muri Kongo, ibintu byose. Yes, fair game. Turi buze kuganira nawe mu kanya saa 11, ni mu masaha 2. Ni ukuvuga ngo iyi nama ndayihagarika saa 11 niramuka ikirimo, ariko je pense, ndibaza ko iriwe kuba itakirimo. Hari aho bari bavuze ko dutangira n'iminota 10. Reka dutegereze turebe, yenda hasigaye iminota 2. Nimbona itinze nanone cyo ndi bukore, ndibuze gushyiraho tombe y'ibifobagane nabwo. Kandi iki kintu cyo mu bifobagane bijyanye n'izi sanction, ushobora kwemera ko baciye bakarumira. Ese kubera iki baruciye bakarumira? I don't know. Ntabwo nzi impamvu baruciye bakarumira. Kuki badashaka kuvuga? Nta n'itangazo bigeze basohora. Ibyo bintu mushobora kubyumva, mwumva igihugu bashobora gufatira ibihano hakabura na communique? No, na media zo mu Rwanda ntabwo zirimo kwivuga. Mwambaza muti kubera iki byabaye? Utekereza ko impamvu ari iyi? Jewe ndayizi. Ishobora kuba atari yo wowe uzi, kandi yawe ishobora kuba ari yo y'ukuri, yenda yanjye atari ukuri, ariko ndahamya nizera ko nzi impamvu batarimo kubikora, impamvu batarimo kuvuga. Why? Kubera ko ntabwo barimo kubivuga kubera ko bazi neza ko umunyarwanda aramutse byumvise ubwabyo, hari abantu batari butangire kutajyanayo ayo mazahabu yabo. Hari abantu bari butangire gutinya gukorana deal na ba Karima. Hari abantu batangira ntibashaka kuba aribo batanga ayo makuru. Bashaka ko bishobora kuza mu ibanga, bikagenda mu ibanga. Ariko abanyarwanda no, babimenye, bafite henshi bakura amakuru. Hasigaye umunota umwe, ariko nawe urageze. Reka mpindure ndebe ku yindi live. So urabona ko n'ubu ntabwo barajya, ariko ni saa 9:10 nk'uko bari babipanze kuri imwe website imwe, ariko ndizera nashidikanya ko iri mu nzira. Reka turebe niba hari izindi hearings zihari, by the way, kuko nshobora kubirebera ahangaha nkababwira niba ari za hearings ziri muri UN. Okay, munyihanganire gatoya, reka mbe ngiye kuri mute. Oh, yes, Sudani nabo. Okay. Bo. So ishobora kuba ntabwo waratangira na ndavuga ko niba batari muri za conclusion aba speakers baracyakomeza. Iracyari mu. Okay. Merci beaucoup. Asante sana. Okay, asante sana. Merci. Birashoboka ko ariyo mpamvu bari bakoze schedule ebyiri zitandukanye, imwe ya saa 9 n'indi ya saa 9:10. Urumva ko bari babyantisipye. Okay. 10 yarenze. Okay. All right, I appreciate that. Reka dutegereze. Urakoze cyane. Thank you. Hey, my friends, mwabyumva rero ni telefone ijyanye exactement ni gahunda nuko UN iracyari hari ikibazo cya Sudani bakirimo kuganiraho cyatinze, ariko irahitiza immediately. Mbere yuko iza rero mureke mbahe ibifobagane nako mbitura ibifobagane iyi ndirimbo yabo, babyibuke ko igihe cyabo mu by'ukuri time is now.
Igihe kirageze ukuri kuratsinda, ibifobagane tumbe. Babeshe isi, babeshe n'ababo, unama zose za jambo rifite imbaraga. Diplomasi yabo yabuye hasi, aho bageze hose barasanga umuryango ufunze.
Biragaragara ko
bagiye bavuga ko bafite inzira, ariko inzira yabo yari umwijima.
Mumbabarire gatoya.
Bagenda basanga izuba ryararashe, akagara kamaze kuhagera mbere. Hiyotera imbere mu kinyoma, inzangwe zawe.
Banyihanganira gatoya, biragaragara ko mutarimo kunyumva. Let me see. Okay, finally, yes.
Igihe kirageze ukuri kuratsinda, ibifobagane tumbe. Babeshe isi, babeshe n'ababo, unama zose za jambo rifite imbaraga. Diplomasi yabo yabuye hasi, aho bageze hose barasanga umuryango ufunze. Bagiye bavuga ko bafite inzira, ariko inzira yabo yari umwijima. Bagenda basanga izuba ryararashe, akagara kamaze ukuri sintambara nukwigisha amateka ushaka kuyobora dafite umutima amaherezo
UN ntabwo iratangira nitangira ndibuze guhita nza live
agakurira mwivangura niyatinya gucukurira imva bazima niyatinya gucukurira imva bazima oh 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 gucukurira imva bazima oh 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 gucukurira imva bazima Nyamari gukina ataranze umubyeyi we mbona ari nta gikarabya byatwengerira cyapoya byatwengerira cyapoya byatwengerira cya byatwengerira cya uwacukuye isarani agakurira mwivangura niyatinya gucukurira imva bazima niyatinya gucukurira imva bazima oh 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 gucukurira imva bazima oh 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 gucukurira imva bazima akungurira inuma we nava mu buzima rubaniza byina haleluya rubaniza byina haleluya byatwengerira cya byatwengerira cya byatwengerira cya byatwengerira cya uwacukuye imisarani agakurira mwivangura niyatinya gucukurira imva bazima niyatinya gucukurira imva bazima
ntiyakwigisha umuco rubanda, oya ntiyakwigisha umuco rubanda. Agakurira mwivangura, ntiyatinya gucukurira imva bazima, ntiyatinya gucukurira imva bazima. Oh, 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 gucukurira imva bazima. Oh, 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 gucukurira imva bazima. Karasire Mabure bitwaye ikisi.
Reka dukomeze tegereze, ntabwo baratangira, ntabwo nabatengushye. Ubu mu kanya gatoya ndi bugaruke maze kubona live yabo, ko ndiho ndayikurikirana no kuri telefone ku ruhande, ndiho ndayikurikiranira hafi cyane, munyihanganire. Reka twongere twumve n'ubundi aka karimbo nako ka Karasira Aimable n'ubundi muri cishwa.
Chishwaha inoza urwangoma nayinyize. Chishwaha mbuza kuba njyewe mana yinyize. Oya chishwaha natangiye mu bwana nkoresha imoso, meterese kure pango nandikisha injo, vyebare nawe ati komeza imoso, buri cyo ndeka ndetse nicyo mitamo. Cishwa mu mikorere, cishwa mu myemerere, ntangira gusenga nk'abandi bana bose, nukurikira izindi mu madini y'ubu, jya mu bakirisitu naho masanga cishwaha, abagatolika, abadive ndetse n'abayehova, bahayi n'abaporo ndetse n'izagitwaza. Chishwaha inoza urwangoma nayinyize. Chishwaha mbuza kuba njyewe mana yinyize. Oya chishwaha
Okay guys, okay, I think noneho UN iratangiye. Reka dushake live stream ya UN. Here we go. Nope. Nimumbwire ko nanone ibaye ibigeragezo. Okay.
Beda ngo kuko ari inzobe, ugondeka burundu kuzashaka na rimwe. Chishwaha inoza urwangoma nayinyize. Chishwaha namwenyura gatoya mudori iyo ntore. Chishwaha yo guhakwa indekesha ububoye, ngiye gushaka imbere urujisho, tambakije Kararise ngo n'igikara. Imiryango yacu ntitubana n'ibikara, bandagira Zubeda ngo kuko ari inzobe, ugondeka burundu kuzashaka na rimwe. Chishwaha inoza urwangoma nayinyize. Chishwaha mbuza kuba njyewe mana yinyize. Oya chishwaha bado ujya ubanga bariyubakunde munyangire nk'iyo ndayihakanye ntuzane mu rwango sinzi ibyo mwapfuye cishwa hayo urwango yadusigiye amateka cishwa hayo urwango isiga abantu mu kaga cishwa hituma hicwa inzirakarengane cishwa hituma hashirwa inzirakarengane cishwa himbuza kuvugisha ukuri murantega iminsi ntimuzi iyo mushigaje maze impaka na mugisha iyakaremye niyikamena
Chishwaha, 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 chishwaha Inoza urwango mana yinyize Chishwaha, chishwaha, chishwaha Imbuza kuba ngewe mana yinyize Oya chishwaha, chishwaha
Kamurebe ya indi no original.
Professor Nigaye KNDC 2013
Iyi ni originale ya Cishwaha irimo amashusho atari amajwi gusa. Iriya yindi niba yaratunganyijwe na studio ariko iyi ngiyi ni imbere ataratangira kujya agana studio ndetse ko byanasabaga n'amafaranga menshi ariko aha ni mbere y'uko iriya yindi yasohotse ifite amajwi atoma ariko iyi ngiyi irimo amashusho ko ushobora no kumureba montage y'abarastaman.
Chishwaha, 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 chishwaha Inoza urwangano mana yinyize Chishwaha, 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 chishwaha Imbuza kuba jewe mana yinyize Chishwaha, 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 cyatangiye mu bwana nkoresha imoso metrese kurepa ngo nandicisha intyo vyebare nawe ati komeza imoso buri cyo ndeka ndetse nicyo mitamo cishwa mu mikorere cishwa mu mibanire cishwa mu myambarire cishwa mu migendere cishwa mu myemerere cishwa mu myumvire hangira gusenga nk'abandi bana bose baba yari umushiya mama yari umusuni nasarira mu bashiya mama ngo cishwaha nasarira mu basuni mama ngo cishwaha cyamubakirisito naho masanga cishwaha abagatolika badive ndetse n'abayehova bahayi n'abaporo ndetse n'izagitwaza cishwaha chishwaha 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 inoza urwangano mana yinyize chishwaha 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 imbuza kuba jewe mana yinyize chishwaha 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 Professor Niga nabaye umuboyi ntangira katavuna nkorera siribateri bamara guhaga bakazana ibyo gufana uharya ufaniye nari senari urushingo byango ni fane maniyu Chishwaha yo gufana indekesha ububoyi nkorera abazungu bazigoshi na duate pariti ya goshi yatsinda nka koma yombi umwaka nsekera undakandeba ikijisho giye gushaka bimbera urujisho tambagije kararise ngo ni igikara imiryango yacu ngo nitubana n'ibikara bandangira zubeda ngo kuko ari zobe ubwo ndeka burundu kuzashaka na rimwe Chishwaha 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 inoza urwangano mana yinyize Chishwaha 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 imbuza kuba jewe mana yinyize Chishwaha 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 chano ucubanga bariyubakunde je sindi wowe nawe nturije ntuzane mu rwango sizi ibyo mwapfuye Chishwaha y'urwango yadusigiye amateka Chishwaha y'urwango isiga abantu mu kaga Chishwaha hituma hicwa inzirakarengane Chishwaha hituma hashingwa inzirakarengane Chishwaha imbuza kuvugisha ukuri murantega iminsi ntimuzi iyo musigaje byasi na soso iyakaremye niyikamena abataza akavumo na Chishwaha hihaba wiyumvira umubavu mwiza wa mamaniya izira n'amajiga ababire baroringa mu cyumba barya bango abandi barya boyiro Chishwaha 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 inoza urwangano mana yinyize Chishwaha 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 imbuza kuba jewe mana yinyize Chishwaha 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 chishwaha
Inama UN ndabona ikomeje gutinda murabizi ko saa 11 dufite ikiganiro na Dr. Charles Kambanda maze igihe mutabona kandi mwaramunumye mwarambwiye muti ese hari uwanditse nijoro ngo ariko se ngo nawe yarafobaganye. Ndagira rero ngo babwire ko icyo gisubizo ntabwo niwe gisubiza, ndagira ngo babwire ko mu kanya saa 11 turi dufite ikiganiro. Ni ukuvuga ngo ibi bya UN aho uko byameze kose turabicamo, cyangwa se twe kwirirwa tunabyumva biturutse n'igihe bavuga bari butangirire. Baravuga ko ari saa 9:10 ariko ntabwo barongera gukora update. Ubwo rero hari ikibazo cy'uko ibya Sudani byatinze, sinzi niba byavuyemo yenda mizinga yavuyemo imyibano. Bya Kongo ibya Sudani ntabwo byoroshye, ariko iyi ni meeting nari ntegereje cyane kuko numvise ko na Masad Bulos nawe ubwe yagomba kuba ari muri ya briefing, ndetse na Swan ya boss wa MONUSCO nawe utarya indimi w'umunyamerika. Reka rero twumve Karasira, ntabwo ari uburyo bubi bwo gutegereza mu by'ukuri mu gihe tegereje. Ubwo nibimara indi minota nibigera saa 10 bataraza, then ubwo ndahita ntegereza ikiganiro na Dr. Charles Kambanda.
Karasira uzaramba, Karasira uzaramba. Tomba hero winesha umutwe, tomba hero winesha umutwe. Gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye, gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye. Wigize umushakashatsi mu bintu utigeze ubamo, moniteri agiri ibyo uzi n'iby'amatungo, ibya jenoside bireke wiyororera ingurube. Tomba hero winesha umutwe, tomba hero winesha umutwe. Gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye, gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye. Ndahirimbura mukoro yirirwa kuri Twitter, imvuma amashi nyakuri umumotsi original, inkandagira bitabo yacishijwe n'amatiku. Tomba hero winesha umutwe, tomba hero winesha umutwe. Gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye, gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye. Abantu bimbwa nkawe nta gihe batabayeho, nyibutsa ngeze Hasani cyangwa Mr. Kantano, sinzi nyimbwiri mu giti ntinyi wayimanitsemo. Tomba hero winesha umutwe, tomba hero winesha umutwe. Gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye, gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye. Winesha umutwe, winesha umutwe. Twarakumenye, twarakumenye. Tomba hero winesha umutwe, tomba hero winesha umutwe. Gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye, gabanya ubwenge twarakumenye.
Yehe, akarimbo zikora cyeza.
Winesha umutwe, twarakumenye, twarakumenye.
Yes. Reka n'ubundi twumve indirimbo ya Karasira again.
Karasira inkweto zawe zaranyobeye, Karasira inkweto zawe zirahangana. Put your self in my shoes, walk my way in my shoes, walk my way in my shoes. See what I see, feel what I feel. If you can't do what I am saying, never judge me by my behavior. Amateka twe twanyuzemo, ukareba ubuzima bamwe tubayemo. Anjye nyakamwe wigeze umuryango, nitwakundiho kandi burya sindiho. Naho burya rwose naramabuye, naho burya rwose miseke ndarwana. Itegereze inkweto jyewe nambara, ngaho zigere maze uvuka umeze. Ukuhindutse jyewe niko nirirwa, inkweto zanjye burya zirahangana. Inkweto zanjye burya ntiwazishobora, oya sigaho ntabwo wazishobora. Ubuzima bwiza twarabubuze, ukwirangiza nabyo twarabitinye. Agahinda kabaye patana rugi, nyirabayazana hambura mu nzozi. Bikubayeho wowe wanasara, bikubayeho wowe waniyahura. Itegereze inkweto jyewe nambara, ngaho zigere maze uvuka umeze. Ukuhindutse jyewe niko nirirwa, inkweto zanjye burya zirahangana. Inkweto zanjye burya ntiwazishobora, oya sigaho ntabwo wazishobora. Ibaze gusigaza umuvandimwe umwe, akagenda apfa kandi ahagaze. Ntabwe burundu ngo nkurikiriyo, ntabeho nyabyo mwagira akamaro. Bikubayeho wowe wanasara, bikubayeho wowe waniyahura. Itegereze inkweto jyewe nambara, ngaho zigere maze uvuka umeze. Ukuhindutse jyewe niko nirirwa, inkweto zanjye burya zirahangana. Inkweto zanjye burya ntiwazishobora, oya sigaho ntabwo wazishobora. Put yourself in my shoes, walk my way in my shoes, walk my way in my shoes. See what I see, feel what I feel. If you can't do what I am saying, never judge me by my behavior.
Reka nshyireho indirimbo imwe gusa, iriya indirimbo ya nayo ni iya Karasira, aho yavugaga ko avuga ngo ndeke undorere nibashakire. Abashenzi urabona ko ibintu ntabwo arashinya isi myinshi, ariko uramwumva ukamukumbura Karasira, ugatekereza ko yarasohotse aribwo agiye kugira umusaruro munini cyane. By the way, reka nze maze twumve iyi ndirimbo ya Ndekundorere.
Osekuru nyagasani tabara bawe nyagasani Osekuru nyagasani tabara bose nyagasani Nekundorere wa mubyeyi we Nekundorere twashoboye Nekundorere wa mubyeyi we Nekundorere twashavuye Nekundorere ayiwe Ibaze kwicwa uhagaze ugapfira muri nyagasani ukabura kivugira abo muhuje bavugirwa ukabura kivugira abo muhuje bavugirwa Nekundorere wa mubyeyi we Nekundorere twashoboye Nekundorere wa mubyeyi we Nekundorere twashavuye Nekundorere ayiwe hari mwiki ridasanzwe bene kagisha twizihiwe byahindutse nk'ibya rugaju abara bacu bitaba inama bitabye inama bitaba imana bitabye inama bitaba imana Nekundorere wa mubyeyi we Nekundorere twashoboye Nekundorere wa mubyeyi we Nekundorere twashavuye Nekundorere ayiwe nabaye igicibwa mu rugo sinizeye abo hanze y'inkiko wa murimyi yanyimye imbuto muhumuza anyimye ikivubuto wa murimyi yanyimye imbuto muhumuza anyimye ikivubuto Nekundorere wa mubyeyi we Nekundorere twashoboye Nekundorere wa mubyeyi we Nekundorere twashavuye Nekundorere ayiwe Nekundorere ayiwe Nekundorere ayiwe Nekundorere ayiwe
nyakubahwa First Lady
aho mubabarire meeting iratangiye ariko turayumva igice kimwe birumvikana munyihanganire gatoya stop and then I think barimo mhm 1 second. By the way, ibintu by'ingenzi cyane no gukurikira ibya chef wa MONUSCO byari buvuge Swan ndetse n'ibyo umuhagarariye Amerika ari buze kuvuga obviously n'abandi ariko cyane wa MONUSCO.
The 10,185th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation concerning the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite Mr. James Swan, Special Representative of the Secretary-General for the Democratic Republic of the Congo, to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. I now give the floor to Mr. James Swan. You have the floor.
Madam President, distinguished members of the Council, thank you for this opportunity to brief the Council for the first time since assuming duty as the SRSG and head of MONUSCO. This briefing comes almost exactly 1 year after the peace agreement signed in Washington between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Republic of Rwanda. Together with the Doha framework for a comprehensive peace agreement and with mediation efforts pursued by the African Union, these processes have created an agreed pathway to peacefully address the conflict in eastern DRC. It is now imperative that momentum be maintained and that the commitments agreed to by the signatories be fully implemented. Madame la Présidente, distingués membres du Conseil de sécurité.
Madam President, distinguished members of the Security Council, the security situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo remains complex, volatile, and devastating for the population. Intensive combats have continued between the Alliance Fleuve Congo, the 23rd of March movement, supported by the RDF, and the armed forces of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Wazalendo in certain areas, and in certain areas the FDLR, Democratic Forces for the Freedom of Rwanda. The main zones of conflict have been 1. Rubaya in North Kivu, an important mining center. 2. The area surrounding Rutshuru, also in North Kivu, where combat has been between the AFC M23 and the FDLR and their allies. And thirdly, the high plains of South Kivu, where the FARDC have confronted the AFC and the M23 and their Tuia-Wanhu allies for control of the strategic village of Minembwe. Confrontations continue using offensive drones, artillery, and heavy weaponry that have seriously intensified the risks for civilians as well as for infrastructure. In accordance with their commitments, the AFC and M23 have partially withdrawn from certain areas of the territories of Lubero and Walikale, as well as from certain areas from South Kivu, particularly part of the Ruzizi Plain in the territory of Uvira. The group, nevertheless, is continuing to consolidate its parallel administrative structures in the areas under its control.
Madam President, diplomatic efforts to bring an end to this conflict continue through the sustained engagement of the United States, Qatar, and the African Union, and supported by Switzerland. Since the last briefing to this Council on the DRC, the government and the AFC M23 signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the International Conference on the Great Lakes region for the operationalization of the Expanded Joint Verification Mechanism Plus, EJVM Plus, which is responsible for monitoring and verifying ceasefire commitments under the Doha process. Since the adoption of Resolution 2808, MONUSCO has participated in meetings of the Ceasefire Oversight and Verification Mechanism established under the Doha process and attended the discussions between the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the AFC M23 held from 13 to 17 April in Montreux. MONUSCO has supported the operationalization of the EJVM Plus in Goma, including through the provision of additional office space, equipment, and furnishings, as well as personal protective equipment for EJVM Plus members, and preparations with EJVM Plus leadership for MONUSCO's provision of logistical and security support for the conduct of ceasefire monitoring and verification activities. I urge the swift deployment of the EJVM Plus to undertake its first missions, which MONUSCO is ready to support. In discussing the security situation in eastern DRC, I also want to highlight the continued threat posed by the Allied Democratic Forces, ADF. In Ituri, attacks have increased significantly against civilians as well as FARDC, Congolese Army, and their allies. Since the last briefing to the Council, the ADF has killed 287 civilians, including 44 women, in Ituri. In North Kivu, ADF violence temporarily eased in the early months of this year, but resurged in Beni territory in recent weeks, with 66 civilians, including 17 women and 3 children, killed.
Madam President, civilian populations continue to bear the heaviest burden of the armed conflicts in eastern DRC. In North Kivu and Ituri since the 19th of March, MONUSCO has documented 632 civilian deaths resulting from the armed conflicts. Humanitarian access remains severely impeded in these areas, despite MONUSCO's intensified efforts to protect civilians and facilitate the delivery of humanitarian assistance. During the same period, our United Nations Joint Human Rights Office has documented 1,221 human rights violations and abuses across the country, including conflict-related sexual violence committed by armed groups and by members of the defense and security forces. Areas affected by ADF attacks and around sites for internally displaced persons. Since the 19th of March 2026, MONUSCO and the FARDC has conducted 2,101 joint patrols. The mission's police component has also carried out 497 patrols, including 81 jointly with the Congolese National Police. MONUSCO has also supported local and provincial peace mechanisms, particularly in Ituri, where progress has been made in implementing the roadmap for dialogue among armed groups in Aru. The mission continues to also support the reform of the security sector supported by the DRC. A national commission to monitor security sector reform has been established, and the country's first national security policy is currently being finalized under the leadership of the presidency. In addition, MONUSCO has continued to support disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration efforts. Between March and June, the mission facilitated the repatriation to Rwanda in cooperation with national and regional authorities, the repatriation to Rwanda of a further 156 former Rwandan combatants, together with 163 of their dependents associated with the FDLR and other foreign armed groups. Madam President, since assuming my duties, I have held extensive consultations in Kinshasa, Ituri, and North Kivu with national and provincial authorities, civil society, women, young people, political actors, humanitarian partners, and community representatives. In Goma, I also met representatives of the AFC M23 in the context of implementing MONUSCO's mandate in areas under their control. Outside the Democratic Republic of the Congo, together with the Secretary-General's Special Envoy for the Great Lakes region, Wang Xia, I met the African Union mediation team led by President Faure Gnassingbé of Togo, the African Union facilitators, or their representatives, and the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. I also met President João Lourenço of Angola, the African Union champion for peace and reconciliation in Africa. These exchanges demonstrate the close cooperation between the African Union and the United Nations, as well as MONUSCO's full commitment to supporting African-led mediation efforts. Throughout these discussions, I reaffirmed MONUSCO's commitment to fully implementing its mandate, particularly the priorities highlighted by the Council. I also encouraged all Congolese stakeholders to work towards a consensus on the proposed modalities for national dialogue, and to preserve civic space and fundamental freedoms, particularly freedom of expression and assembly, so that political parties and other stakeholders are able to express their views in a peaceful and a secure environment.
The humanitarian crisis in the DRC remains grave. Nearly 27 million people, more than a quarter of the population, are food insecure. The 2026 Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan has hyper-prioritized 7.3 million people to receive assistance at a budget of $1.4 billion, which is currently 53% funded. I thank donors for their generosity to date and urge full funding to address the DRC's acute needs. The continued closure of banks in Goma and the closure of Goma and Kavumu airports continue to place further strain on the civilian population and impact the delivery of life-saving humanitarian assistance in these areas. I call on all parties to prioritize humanitarian needs by concluding arrangements to reopen these facilities. I condemn violence perpetrated against humanitarian actors and do so in the strongest terms. 4 humanitarian workers have been killed in the DRC since the beginning of the year. Madam President, the government of the DRC declared an outbreak of the Ebola virus disease on 15 May. The World Health Organization is spearheading the UN's public health response in close collaboration with Africa CDC and partners, and under the leadership of the Congolese government. MONUSCO is supporting these efforts within its means while continuing to fully implement its mandated tasks in its areas of deployment. Despite the significant response already in place, the location of the main outbreak in an area of active conflict and in urban settings with already overstretched health structures poses considerable risks for further expansion of the epidemic. The closure of borders and movement restrictions further complicate the delivery of a full humanitarian response effort. I thank neighboring states for the recent progress in addressing these constraints, which has enabled controlled cross-border movements of humanitarian responders and United Nations personnel. Madam President, in concluding, I urge all parties to the Washington and Doha agreements to sustain the diplomatic achievements which have been made to date, to consolidate progress in implementing the protocols already signed, to advance discussions on the issues in the remaining protocols, including humanitarian aspects, and, in short, to stay the course toward a durable peace. I reiterate the calls made by the Secretary General for all parties to fully comply with their commitments under Council Resolutions 2773 and 2808, which reaffirm respect for the sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and which chart a path toward the peaceful resolution of the conflict in the eastern part of the country. MONUSCO's support for the aspirations of the Congolese people for sustainable peace, security, and development remains unwavering. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Swan for the information provided. Thank you very much. I will now give the floor to those council members who wish to make statements. I give the floor to the delegation of France. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I would like to thank the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Mr. James Swan. We thank him for his work. And I also welcome the presence amongst us of the Special Advisor of the President of the United States on Arab and African Affairs, Dr. Masad Boulos. A year ago, we met when a peace agreement had just been signed between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, thanks to the mediation of the United States. Progress has been made, including with the support of Qatar, Togo, and the African Union, whose mediation and facilitation work was central. The full implementation of this agreement must remain our political horizon line for peace in the Great Lakes. And I would like to emphasize 3 points now. First of all, the ceasefire is more than ever a priority to protect civilians, and we call on the parties to uphold it. The continuation of the fighting threatens the population. The upsurge in drone attacks is worrying. One of our compatriots working for UNICEF was a victim of such an attack in Goma, and we call for transparency on the responsibility for this attack. We're also concerned by the recent AFC M23 attack on Kisangani Airport, 400 kilometers from the front lines. A ceasefire, an effective ceasefire, is essential to protect the population from the fighting and to give peace a chance. In Montreux, the parties committed to respecting international humanitarian law, including access, movement, and infrastructure for humanitarian workers. In the dramatic context of the Ebola resurgence, which the DRC is facing now, we are supporting the response of the Congolese authorities alongside the WHO and humanitarian agencies. France has released emergency assistance. The resumption of humanitarian flights via Goma Airport is all the more essential here, and we will continue to work alongside the mediators in this regard to find a pragmatic and adapted solution. Second, we must act collectively to ensure that the parties respect their obligations. The parties must comply with Resolution 2773, which was adopted unanimously by this Council, and which calls for the immediate cessation of hostilities, the effective withdrawal of the Rwandan forces for the defense from Congolese territory, the cessation of Rwandan support for the M23, and the effective neutralization of the FDLR by the DRC. Respect for Congolese sovereignty and territorial integrity is non-negotiable, and it must be a part of a lasting political solution, which will also involve the cessation of all hate speech and progress on the Congolese national dialogue. It's also important to end the pillaging and the illicit trafficking of the natural resources of the Congo, which is done by the armed groups. Third point, we reaffirm our support for MONUSCO in supporting the peace process. Adopted unanimously by this Council, Resolution 2808 authorizes MONUSCO to support the implementation of a permanent ceasefire within the framework of the mechanism agreed by the parties in Doha. It is essential that this mechanism be finally operational. MONUSCO is getting ready for this, including in South Kivu, in close collaboration with the International Conference for the Great Lakes region. We support all efforts to make progress towards the realization of the ceasefire. To this end, it's essential to put an end to impediments to MONUSCO and practices that endanger the safety of peacekeepers and limit their freedom of movement. And finally, I would like to commend MONUSCO's essential role in the protection of civilians, which is one of its priority tasks. In North Kivu and Ituri, MONUSCO continues to protect civilians from the destabilizing actions of armed groups, including the ADF terrorist group. Madam President, the parties signed a peace agreement, and they must recognize its realities. There is no military solution to this conflict. This Council must therefore use all of its tools, including the sanctions regimes on which the Council is working right now to renew it. This Council will therefore remain mobilized to restore peace and stability in the Great Lakes. I thank you.
I thank the representative of France for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Liberia.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the E3, namely the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Somalia, and my own country, Liberia. We thank the Special Representative of the Secretary General and Head of MONUSCO, Mr. James Swan, for his briefing and reaffirm our support for the mission's efforts to protect civilians, support de-escalation, and accompany nationally owned and regionally anchored peace efforts in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. DA3 remains gravely concerned by the deteriorating security situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. Once again, civilians bear the heaviest burden of armed violence, displacement, and fear. The reported rise in civilian casualties is not only a matter of statistics. It truly is a measure of human suffering and a reminder of the urgent responsibility of this Council to support efforts that protect lives, restore security, and advance a durable peace. We strongly condemn the continued violence perpetrated by armed groups, including AFC M23, the Allied Democratic Forces, CODECO, the Convention pour la Révolution Populaire, and the FDLR. Their attacks against civilians, forced recruitment, summary execution, abductions, and other grave violations are unacceptable and must cease immediately. We call upon all parties to fully respect international humanitarian law, including the principles of distinction, precaution, and proportionality, and to take every feasible measure to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure. The A3 reiterates the importance of the full implementation of Security Council Resolution 2773 and all relevant regional commitments. The sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of the Democratic Republic of the Congo must be respected. All external support to armed groups must end, and all parties must engage in good faith toward a political settlement that is credible, inclusive, and sustainable. We remain deeply disturbed by documented cases of conflict-related sexual violence. Survivors must receive protection, care, and justice. In this regard, we commend MONUSCO's continued support in coordination with the Congolese authorities and emphasize that accountability is indispensable to breaking the cycle of impunity. Madam President, the humanitarian situation remains alarming. Displacement, food insecurity, in fact, general insecurity and public health risk continue to place immense pressure on affected communities and humanitarian actors. We welcome the efforts of the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, supported by the World Health Organization, MONUSCO, and other partners to strengthen surveillance, community engagement, clinical preparedness, and cross-border coordination in response to Ebola-related risks. We are equally concerned that insecurity and access constraints continue to impede humanitarian operations. Humanitarian access must be safe, rapid, and unhindered, in accordance with international humanitarian law. International support should reinforce nationally led coordination and response mechanisms while ensuring that assistance reaches those most in need. Madam President, the A3 is convinced that there is no sustainable military solution to the crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. Peace will not be secured by force alone. It must be built through dialogue, confidence, respect for sovereignty, and the faithful implementation of commitments already undertaken. We therefore welcome continued diplomatic engagement under the African Union-led process, complemented by the Doha and Washington initiatives, and stress the need for coherence, complementarity, and African ownership. We commend the efforts of the African Union mediator, President Faure Gnassingbé of Togo, and the co-facilitator, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, in advancing regional dialogue. We also welcome progress under the Doha process and encourage all parties to consolidate recent gains, strengthen confidence-building measures, facilitate humanitarian access, and work toward a permanent and viable cessation of hostilities consistent with existing regional commitments. Regarding MONUSCO's transition, the A3 emphasizes that any drawdown must remain responsible, gradual, conditions-based, and implemented in accordance with the jointly agreed disengagement plan and the priorities of the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The United Nations must retain sufficient flexibility to support civilian protection, the restoration of state authority, and the strengthening of national institutions throughout the transition. In conclusion, Madam President, the A3 expresses its appreciation to the Special Representative of the Secretary General and to all United Nations peacekeepers and civilian personnel serving under difficult conditions. We commend the resilience of the Congolese people and recognize the leadership of the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, together with regional and international partners, in advancing peace, stabilization, and recovery. The Council must remain united, principled, and practical, united in support of MONUSCO's mandate, principled in upholding Resolution 2773 and the sovereignty of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and practical in supporting African-led diplomacy that can deliver lasting peace, security, and sustainable development for the Congolese people and the wider Great Lakes region. I thank you for your kind attention.
I thank the representative of Liberia for your statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the United States. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, SRSG Swan, for your insights today and your leadership of MONUSCO at this important time. MONUSCO has long played a critical role in the DRC, and we greatly appreciate our close cooperation on many fronts. This month marks 1 year since the signing of the Washington Accords, making this critical time to take stock of our achievements, address remaining challenges and obstructions to implementation, and build toward lasting peace. Despite progress, the parties continue to fall short on their obligations. Despite the DRC has not upheld obligations for the FDLR neutralization at least in the areas that they control. At the same time, Rwanda has not delivered on its commitments to withdraw the Rwandan Defense Forces, RDF, and cease support to M23. Progress on both of these is long overdue, and there should be no more delays or excuses. As we have shown, the United States will hold accountable spoilers to peace in Eastern DRC. For example, in March, we sanctioned the RDF for actively supporting, training, and fighting alongside M23. And just yesterday, we sanctioned a network working in coordination with M23 to illegally smuggle minerals from Eastern DRC to Rwanda. Our message to the parties is clear. Abandon the dangerous pursuit for a military solution to this conflict and commit fully and immediately to the agreed frameworks for peace. Continued inaction or obstruction by the parties will result in more accountability measures. And this need for action towards peace is true, not only with regard to the Washington Accords, but also for the concurrent track of talks between the DRC and M23 that have been taking place in Qatar and Switzerland. The attention of this Council, as we saw with UN Security Council Resolution 2773, is also critical to ensuring accountability. Turning to MONUSCO, today is an important opportunity to recognize how MONUSCO plays a critical role in the implementation of peace processes. By supporting the expanded Joint Verification Mechanism Plus, MONUSCO advances ceasefire verification and monitoring efforts in Eastern DRC. We fully support these efforts. MONUSCO has done everything needed to ensure these EJVM Plus missions are as effective as possible. We call on the parties to approve the first mission of the EJVM Plus immediately. Monitoring and verification are necessary for clarifying the situation on the ground and identifying violations. The first step to accountability. MONUSCO has also played a vital role in the demobilization, disarmament, and reintegration of the FDLR and a multitude of armed groups operating across Eastern DRC provinces. Such DDR processes are vital to ending the cycle of violence on the ground. Protection of local populations through armament and mobilization has the opposite effect. We do not forget that the volatility in Eastern DRC extends beyond armed group activity. The foreign terrorist organization ISIS DRC continues a brutal pattern of violence and abuses. In fact, it has become the second most violent ISIS affiliate globally. We appreciate MONUSCO's continued assistance alongside other forces in backing the offensive against this terrorist organization. Finally, we recognize MONUSCO's vital support for the Ebola outbreak response. Since the declaration of an outbreak in Eastern DRC, MONUSCO has played a critical role in enabling the international community's response efforts. MONUSCO has flown more than 100 tons of medical supplies to Bunia from surrounding regional hubs and sent vehicles overland to support a robust response. Peacekeepers are disinfecting community gathering places, implementing community awareness campaigns, and securing health operations in disease epicenters. We thank them for these essential efforts. It is worth noting that MONUSCO is effectively deploying this support despite continued barriers to humanitarian access and delivery in this region, namely the continued closure of Goma and Kavumu airports. MONUSCO's continued support is greatly appreciated, from helping to coordinate between humanitarian organizations and armed actors, to protecting health workers and medical facilities, to providing helicopter transport for evacuations and deliveries. The mission works tirelessly to ensure the humanitarian access discussed in the April Montreux meetings is implemented and respected so that medical teams and supplies can move freely across all areas. We encourage the mission and the government of the DRC to continue working together to promote better health, security, and prosperity for the people of the DRC and the broader region. The United States remains committed in our efforts to ensure progress towards sustained peace. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States. I now give the floor to the representative of Panama. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Madam President. We thank the Special Representative of the Secretary-General, James Swan, for his briefing, and we take note of the Secretary-General's latest report on the situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Panama notes with deep concern that despite the diplomatic progress achieved through the Doha and Washington processes and the mediation led by the African Union, the situation on the ground remains extremely fragile. The continued violence perpetrated by armed groups, in particular the AFC M23 and the Allied Democratic Forces, continues to have devastating consequences for the civilian population. The report records 632 civilian deaths during the reporting period, representing a 35% increase compared with the previous reporting period. In this context, we reiterate the importance of the full implementation of Resolution 2773 of 2025. Consolidating the ceasefire, ensuring compliance with the commitments undertaken by the parties, and respecting the country's sovereignty, independence, unity and territorial integrity remain indispensable elements for achieving a lasting solution. Madam President, we welcome the tangible progress made in operationalizing the expanded Joint Verification Mechanism Plus, including the appointment of its leadership, the designation of representatives by the parties, and preparations for the first ceasefire verification missions. These developments represent an important step towards translating the political commitments made through the ongoing peace processes into operational mechanisms on the ground. We believe that the principal challenge no longer lies in securing new commitments, but rather in ensuring their effective implementation. Furthermore, we remain concerned about the continuing violations of human rights and international humanitarian law, including abductions, the recruitment of children, summary executions, and conflict-related sexual violence. The protection of civilians must remain the central priority of all national, regional, and international efforts. The humanitarian situation continues to be alarming. The 5.8 million internally displaced persons, the food insecurity affecting more than 26 million people, and the spread of the Ebola outbreak reflect the scale of the challenges facing the Congolese population. We recognize the significant efforts undertaken by the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo with the support of the World Health Organization and other international partners to contain the outbreak, strengthening epidemiological surveillance and protecting affected communities. We also welcome the fact that MONUSCO has strengthened its prevention, biosafety and hygiene measures to safeguard its personnel. We reiterate our support for humanitarian efforts and call on the international community to ensure adequate resources and safe access for humanitarian workers. Panama expresses its unwavering support for the mission and its personnel, whose work remains indispensable for the protection of civilians, support for ceasefire monitoring mechanisms, and stabilization efforts. In conclusion, we agree that any transition of the mission should be gradual, responsible, and guided by the security conditions on the ground, with the aim of preserving the progress achieved and preventing security vacuums that could be exploited by armed actors to further destabilize conflict-affected areas. Our country will continue to support the efforts led by the Democratic Republic of the Congo in coordination with regional actors and the United Nations, under the leadership of Special Representative James Swan, to achieve lasting peace and ensure the protection of its population. Thank you. I thank Panama for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of China.
President, I thank Special Representative Swan for the briefing. As the conflict drags on in eastern DRC, and an Ebola outbreak is raging once again, the security and the humanitarian situations in the country have become more severe. The international community must work together to turn the situation around as soon as possible. I will make 5 points. First, achieve a comprehensive ceasefire immediately. At present, the ceasefire implementation in eastern DRC has fallen short of expectations. The parties to the conflict lack mutual trust and continue to exchange fire. The international community must urge them to fully implement Council Resolution 2773 by ceasing hostilities, respecting IHL, and protecting the safety of civilians. External mediators should step up and facilitate the real implementation of relevant peace agreements. All countries should fully comply with the relevant arms embargo and honor their commitments to cessation of hostilities. In the meantime, the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of the DRC must be fully respected. Second, firmly support a political settlement. The recent resumption of the Doha process in Switzerland is an encouraging development. We encourage the DRC government and M23 to continue to resolve differences through negotiations and promptly agree on the remaining protocols. Regional issues cannot be resolved without the efforts and support of regional countries. The international community should support the central role of the AU in the Eastern DRC peace process, and support greater coordination and synergy among the UN, AU, and sub-regional organizations to help build an open, inclusive, and mutually beneficial regional security and economic framework. Third, every effort must be made to mitigate the humanitarian crisis. The protracted conflict has resulted in a grave humanitarian crisis in eastern DRC, which was further exacerbated by the recent Ebola outbreak. China supports the efforts of the DRC, the UN, WHO, the Africa CDC, and others to prevent and control the outbreak, and calls on the international community, especially traditional donors, to increase contributions and close the funding gap. The parties to the conflict should prioritize people's lives and health, work together to ensure unhindered humanitarian access, safeguard the safety of medical personnel and humanitarian workers, and strive to overcome the outbreak at an early date. Fourth, the root causes of the conflict must be addressed comprehensively. The DRC's abundant natural resources should have been an important foundation for national development, but they have long been plundered and smuggled by armed groups, becoming a key driver of conflicts. China supports regional countries in establishing transparent and inclusive mineral cooperation mechanisms to sever the chain of illegal resource trade. The Council should support regional organizations and mechanisms in strengthening transparency and traceability in resource exports. Major powers outside the region should avoid treating regional mineral resources as bargaining chips in geopolitical rivalry, genuinely abandon zero-sum thinking, uphold inclusive and open cooperation, and truly help regional countries and peoples benefit from the development and use of resources. Fifth, ensure the effective fulfillment of the mission's mandate. China has always supported MONUSCO in fulfilling its mandate authorized by the Council and calls on relevant parties to lift restrictions on MONUSCO as soon as possible. Under current circumstances, to support the implementation of the ceasefire, MONUSCO should, in accordance with its mandate, use its existing capabilities to provide logistical and technical support to the EJVM Plus of the International Conference on the Great Lakes region. On the issue of large-scale deployment in South Kivu, it should first seek the Council's approval. We encourage the Special Representative to continue strengthening coordination with the SG's Special Envoy for the Great Lakes region and to maintain a reasonable division of responsibilities. President, China and African countries, including the DRC, have always been a community with a shared future, standing together through difficulties. In response to the Ebola outbreak, China immediately provided emergency humanitarian assistance to the country, to DRC and the AU, and sent a medical expert team to the country. Recently, China again provided emergency humanitarian assistance to the DRC, Uganda, and the AU and others. China will follow closely the development of the outbreak and, based on the needs of African countries, provide support within its capacity to help the countries concerned overcome the outbreak as soon as possible. China stands ready to work with the international community to make greater contributions to helping the region return to peace and stability and achieve development and prosperity. Thank you, President.
I thank the representative of China for your statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan. You have the floor.
Very much, Madam President. I thank Special Representative James and the challenging humanitarian situation in these areas. The persistence of hostilities, the continued territorial expansion and consolidation of control by the AFC M23, the increasing use of armed drones, and the worsening humanitarian situation underscore the urgent need to translate political commitments into tangible improvements in security and stability. Pakistan
I thank the representative of Pakistan for your statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Denmark. You have the floor.
I thank SRSG Swan for his comprehensive briefing and welcome him to the Council for his first briefing in this capacity. As we've heard, the conflict in the eastern DRC warrants our continued attention. This is particularly true in the context of the recent Ebola outbreak. The outbreak has placed further strain on an already overstretched humanitarian response, further compounded by continued armed conflict, mass displacement, and persistent human rights violations and abuses. As just recommitted by the parties earlier this week in London for the 6th meeting of the Joint Oversight Committee, we urge the immediate cessation of hostilities. This includes refraining from the use of heavy weapons and drone strikes in populated areas and any actions that risk escalating tensions or undermining the ongoing peace efforts led by the US, Qatar and the African Union. In line with Security Council Resolution 2773 and 2808, we once again urge the withdrawal of the Rwandan Defense Forces from the DRC, for Rwanda to immediately cease all support to the M23 and for the government of the DRC to refrain from support to armed groups, including FDLR. We further call on all parties to make the expanded Joint Verification Mechanism Plus fully operational and to finalize the remaining Doha protocols. We welcome the support of Switzerland for the Doha process. We commend and encourage the ongoing work of MONUSCO in support of the peace processes, including for implementation of a permanent ceasefire in line with its mandate. Madam President, to enable these ongoing efforts, it's essential that MONUSCO has full freedom of movement of its personnel, assets and supplies. We call for the immediate restoration of full access to the Goma and Kavumu airports, the facilitation of medical evacuations, uninterrupted fuel supply lines, and the cessation of the use of offensive drones and GPS spoofing and jamming. Ensuring safe and unimpeded access for peacekeepers and humanitarian actors is critical, not only for the safety and security of peacekeepers, but also for the protection of civilians. Madam President, the disregard for international law, including international humanitarian and human rights law, is appalling. Reports of summary executions, abductions, forced recruitment, arbitrary detention, and conflict-related sexual violence committed by both armed groups and state actors are unacceptable and must cease immediately. We call on all parties to comply fully with their obligations under international humanitarian law and international human rights law, and to ensure the protection of civilians, particularly women and children. Accountability, including for conflict-related sexual violence and grave violations against children, must remain at the center of national and international efforts to resolve the crisis. In closing, the choice before the parties is clear: continued escalation, suffering and instability, or a genuine commitment to peace. The Security Council has spoken clearly through its resolutions. Mediators have created a pathway forward. What is now required is implementation. Denmark remains steadfast in our support for MONUSCO, the peace processes underway, and the efforts of the Congolese people to build a peaceful, stable and prosperous future. I thank you.
I thank the delegation of Denmark. I now give the floor to the delegation of Latvia.
Thank you, Madam President. I thank Special Representative Swan for his comprehensive briefing today. Latvia also pays tribute to uniformed personnel and civilian staff of MONUSCO for their work in very difficult circumstances. Madam President, I will make 3 points today. First, we remain deeply concerned by the troubling humanitarian and security situation in the eastern DRC. We strongly condemn the violence and human rights abuses perpetrated by armed groups in Ituri, North Kivu and South Kivu. While they are numerous, we want to emphasize that the gruesome and extending reach of ADF's attacks increases concerns about the group's threat to civilians, as highlighted at today's briefing. The Ebola outbreak adds a new layer of complexity. Containing an outbreak is that much harder when insecurity continues to drive displacement, when mistrust, fueled by misinformation and disinformation, reigns, when humanitarian actors face restricted access and are met with intimidation and violence on their missions. We call on all parties to comply with international humanitarian law and ensure safe, rapid, and unhindered humanitarian access. We commend the support of MONUSCO, UN country team, and other humanitarian actors to the Ebola response. Community engagement, national political commitment, regional cooperation, and international support are needed to break the chains of transmission. Similar ingredients are necessary to break the cycle of violence and impunity. And this is my second point. Latvia supports all efforts to achieve lasting peace in the Eastern DRC. We commend the mediation efforts by the United States, Qatar, and the African Union, as well as support provided by Switzerland. We urge all parties to comply with Security Council Resolutions 2773 and 2808 and to implement their obligations and commitments in good faith. Tomorrow marks 1 year since the signing of the Washington Peace Agreement between the DRC and Rwanda, a significant achievement. Yet while the situation on the ground has changed, it has not substantially improved. Once again, we call on all parties to translate commitments into tangible progress on the ground. We urge Rwanda to cease its support to M23 and withdraw its troops from the DRC. And we also call on the neutralization of the FDLR and the cessation of all support to this and other armed groups. Every delay, every broken commitment or escalation can be measured in human lives, lost, traumatized, or displaced. The conflict's growing technological sophistication, including the use of advanced weaponry, increases protection concerns and underlines the obligation to comply with international humanitarian law. The gap between commitments and realities on the battlefield needs to be closed. We therefore urge all parties to remain fully engaged in the peace process and to work towards a permanent, verifiable ceasefire. And this brings me to my third and final point. We welcome MONUSCO's support to the operationalization of the expanded Joint Verification Mechanism Plus. We look forward to seeing the first ceasefire verification mission take place and urge all parties to ensure the necessary conditions for MONUSCO to play an effective role. It is also important that the mission is adequately resourced to implement its priority tasks, especially in the current challenging circumstances, ensuring sustained engagement and effective support for ceasefire implementation. Madam President, to conclude, allow me to reiterate Latvia's commitment to the sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of the Democratic Republic of Congo and to peace and prosperity in the Great Lakes region. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Latvia for your statement, and I now give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. And I thank Special Representative Mr. James Swan for his briefing. I will make 3 points. First, the United Kingdom is concerned by the impact of the Ebola outbreak in Eastern DRC, which is worsening an already dire humanitarian situation. We commend the swift response of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we welcome MONUSCO's efforts to ensure that critical supplies can reach affected areas. The United Kingdom has committed up to $26 million to support the Ebola response. We are working with the DRC, international partners, including the World Health Organization and Africa CDC, and regional governments, to support a coordinated response and to strengthen surveillance, containment, and preparedness. We call on all parties to provide full and unhindered humanitarian access, in line with international law, to enable this vital public health response. Second, the UK welcomes the commitments made by the DRC and by Rwanda at the Joint Oversight Committee meeting in London on the 24th of June. It is vital that the agreed steps to de-escalate tensions are taken without delay, in accordance with Security Council Resolution 2773. We welcome the commitment to support a successful conclusion to the Doha process, and we call on all parties to engage constructively with negotiations on the protocols. We also urge all parties to support the swift deployment of the enhanced joint verification conflict-related sexual violence and grave violations against children. We note with concern increased drone strikes, aerial bombardments, and heavy artillery shelling in densely populated areas, undermining the safety of civilians. The United Kingdom underscores the need for all parties to respect international humanitarian law and protect civic space. I thank you.
I thank the
Okay, bavandimwe
representative
rero
of the United Kingdom
aha niho
for their
tugiye
statement.
gusoreza
And I
iki
give the floor
kiganiro.
to the representative of Greece.
Okay,
You have the floor.
uwa Greece tugiye kumwirengagiza tugiye kumwirengagiza kubera ko nk'uko mubizi mfite ikiganiro na Dr. Kambanda mu mwanya tugiye kigwete gutangira abo turi kumwe nabagira inama yo kugumaho muhite mujya ku yindi link ni mu kanya rero mu masegonda actually mu minota igera kuri 5 gusa turatangira iki kiganiro kindi ndizera ko turi kumwe mwese ikiganiro Dr. Kambanda kiribuze kuvuga kuri ibi byose situation ya geopolitique za sanctions zo mu Rwanda ndetse by'umwihariko ikirego cya leta ya Congo ku Rwanda muri cour internationale mu kanya rero abangaba turaba tubahagaritse aplis naho mu kanya